Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hey Coach Tony. I'm your host, Tony Fiorino. It is Saturday, May 7th. Hey, some interesting news this week. A member of my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers created a little bit of controversy this past week. That's right, Rashad Mendenhall. Unless you live in a cave, you've probably heard that Mendenhall, just hours after the announced death of Osama bin Laden, went up on Twitter and angered roughly 99.99% of the U.S. population by making some pretty stupid comments. I say 99.99 because there was one moronic journalist who I've talked about on the show before who decided it was his responsibility to step in and come to Rashad Mendenhall's defense. And I'm going to talk about that later on in the show in my favorite segment that I'm starting to call, You Know What Really Grinds My Gears, a la Peter Griffin and Family Guy. But the real issue at hand this morning is that tomorrow is Mother's Day. And so I want to have a little fun this morning while honoring all the moms out there. Just my way of paying a little homage to the wonderful women who drove us to our games, made sure our uniforms were always clean, and that we had a drink and a bag of cookies mixed in with our equipment on game day. And, of course, Mom, if you're listening, happy Mother's Day to you. I obviously would be in a lot of trouble if I didn't say that. Well, in keeping with the spirit of Mother's Day, I put the feelers out this week to see if I could get somebody to join me in studio who's got experience not just as a mom, but also as a coach. And I'm very pleased to say that I am joined by Maura Fletcher. Maura is the women's varsity lacrosse coach at Newtown High School in Newtown, Connecticut. She is a very accomplished coach, as well as a mom of 4, I just learned. So I invited Maura to the show this morning in hopes that she might be able to shed a little light on some things for us, because let's face it, there are times when moms and dads just don't see eye to eye when it comes to kids' sports. And there are even more times when they just see things just from a different perspective. So, obviously, as always, if you've got some things to share with us, the studio lines are open at 855-HEY-COACH. That is 855-439-2622. Maura, good morning, and welcome to Hey Coach Tony. How you doing this morning?
Great, Tony. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Pleasure is absolutely all mine. Now, before we get started in all this stuff, and I'm excited about it, should be a couple of laughs. I gave you a brief intro, but if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit more detail on your background, both as a mom and as a coach.
Okay. Well, I'm always a mom first. I started coaching at the high school level 7 years ago at Newtown High. We've had great success there. All 4 of my children play sports. It's kind of a prerequisite in our house. Unfortunately, none of my kids are musically talented. So sports has always been a place that we have pushed our kids and excelled at. But again, I'm always a mom first. So even in between practices and games, I'm running home to grill up some chicken to try to give them something healthy before they get onto their own sports. So.
Now, you say they. How many kids do you have?
Oh, sorry.
4, right?
And 4 children. Annie is my oldest. She's at Vanderbilt University. She's a freshman. Will is a junior at Newtown High, plays on the varsity lacrosse team there. Madeline is a freshman at Newtown High. She also plays lacrosse and field hockey. And Charlie is my youngest. He's a 7th grader in middle school. He plays... I hate to say that his passion is football over lacrosse, but it is. But he plays football, basketball, and lacrosse.
Well, I can tell you from direct experience, my son, who is in 8th grade, also his passion is football, and he played in his youth days, which just recently ended, in the Candlewood Valley League, where Newtown not only plays, but dominates. I mean, that is a serious youth program, and I think if you live in Newtown, you got to have some kind of passion for football, because those kids are off the charts, and your parent group and coaches group are over the top, and I mean in a good way. I mean, very, very enthusiastic people when it comes to football in Newtown, Connecticut.
I agree. They work really hard there.
No question. As a matter of fact, I got to watch, well, I didn't know your son, but I watched your son play last year, and they put a whooping on our Somers boys like it was nobody's business. But in any event, we're not going to relive my pain. I can really only speak for myself when I say there are times when I am just baffled at how differently moms and dads can see things in the whole youth sports equation. Now, I got a bunch of emails this week from moms and dads around the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area outlining their complaints. And while, of course, none of them, especially the dads, were willing to give us their names, cowards out there, they did have some interesting points and some questions, and I want to see if maybe you can give us some of your opinions on a couple of them. Is that all right?
Sure.
All right. Well, again, whether you're a dad or a mom, you got some questions or some stories to share about how clueless your spouse is, just give us a call here in the studio at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. And while we're waiting for your calls, I got a question or two for you, if you don't mind. The one that I kept going back to as I was preparing for the show is, as a mom and as a coach, and this is at the high school level, your kids are in high school. Do you coach your own kids?
I do coach my own kids, and I have to say it's so rewarding at times, but at other times it's really, really difficult. And if we had a lot more time, my daughter, who just went into college, her college essay was called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, about her mom being her high school coach. So it is so rewarding, and it's great, but unfortunately for your child, it never ends, because you're coaching them on the field, I'm coaching them in the car home, and then it's also the topic of dinner conversation.
Well, that, you know what, I was just about to say, I'm sitting across from you, and there's, I'm sure, some good and the bad. There ain't a lot of ugly. You're a very pretty lady. By the way, can't believe you have a kid in college. So kudos to you, and even more kudos to Mr. Fletcher. If you're listening, don't get upset. I'll be flirting with your wife throughout the hour. But the ugly is, and I got to tell you, this is one thing I'm so glad you said that, because usually dads, we are so guilty of what I call the post-game analysis. Game's over, they get in the car, the first thing we do is talk about the game. And I can only speak for the dad side of this equation when I say that my kids rarely, if ever, open up about the games, especially if they didn't have a great game. What has been your experience about that car ride home when you, well, first of all, do you bring it up, or do your kids bring it up in the car?
Oh, I bring it up.
Okay, Coach, good.
They want to walk off the field, and they don't want to discuss it, because I veer more to the side of finding fault in what they did to correct that, instead of praising them for the good things that they did. And I think that that's just the mindedness of a coach. You know, your team gets better by finding out what's wrong and making it right. Of course, complimenting kids when they do things right, but as a parent who's also a coach, I really veer towards the side that I see what they do wrong in games. There became a time, though, that we had to say, okay, we've got to shut it off, because it became a problem at home. Today,
I want you to mark your calendar, because today is not only the day before Mother's Day. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. And today I'm going to change your life.
Okay.
We didn't expect this, so everybody, I hope you're paying attention. I'm going to change your life today, and I'm going to give you one simple rule. And if you do nothing more than follow this rule, your relationship with your kids, which I'm sure is great, is going to just skyrocket. Here it is. Simple rule. When you're in the car on the way home from a game and you think you have some really good advice on how to correct a mistake, keep your mouth shut. Don't say a word. And I'll explain to you why. And I always use this example, but you're new to the show, so you probably never heard it. There's a couple of people in Westchester listening right now going, oh, boy, here he goes again.
Should I get a pen and paper?
No, it's really easy to understand, because you live it every day. There are different dynamics in the youth sports equation when it's the relationship between parent and coach, parent and kid, kid and coach, and all around that equation. Most of these relationships I liken to the relationship between husband and wife. And bear with me. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what your husband does, doesn't matter who makes more money, doesn't matter who commutes where, whatever. From experience, I can tell you that 99% of all men, when their day is done and they come home, when they walk through that door, and you probably know this, what's the last thing your husband wants to talk about when his day is over?
Work.
His day, right?
Right.
Okay. 99.9% of women, what's the first thing they ask their husband when he walks through the door?
Hi, honey, how was your day?
Exactly. How stupid is that? How counterintuitive is that? Well, guess what? And let's assume for a second I had a lousy day. I used to be dumb enough to tell my wife, you know what, not a great day, thinking she'd catch the clue that I don't want to talk about it. Well, what do you think she said after I tell it wasn't a great day?
What happened?
Exactly. Let's relive all this stuff that's making you feel so bad and look like garbage when you come home. Guess what? When your kid, boy or girl, steps in the car after the game, his or her day is over. And your kid, male or female, is the husband in this equation. You, as coach or dad or mom, are the wife. And not only are you saying, think about this, not only are you saying, how was your day? You're actually saying, hey, I watched your day. And I can tell you what went wrong, and I can tell you why it went wrong, and what you did wrong, and how you're going to fix it. Think about if you hit your husband with that coming through the door. You're going to get zero response. Now, that doesn't mean, especially as a coach, you don't have some really good, valuable information to share with your kid, but there's a time and a place to do it. With kids, with parents, by the way, I usually say it's a 24-hour period of time. You don't talk about it until the next day. With kids, it's a little different. You wait 24 hours and you know kids. It's gone. And in a way, that's great. It just goes out of their head and they're totally done with it. You seem like a very caring lady. I assume you still have some form of saying goodnight to your kids.
Yep.
All right. Again, here's where we're going to get really interesting about this. Let's say your daughter had an opportunity to score a goal, and she was on the left side of the field, and instead of going for her left-hand shot, she went for her crutch, which is her right-hand shot. Mm-hmm. Instead of sitting in the car and saying, you know what, Lauren, I can't believe you didn't shoot with your left. You could have had the game-winning goal, but instead you shot with your right. I know it's a stronger shot, but you got to learn to shoot with your left. Kid hears, mwah, 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 like the old Charlie Brown school teacher. If when it's time for bed, you get with Lauren and you talk about, we call it a praise sandwich. It's kind of hokey, but it gives you the opportunity to give your criticism and almost hide it. So now I'm going to be you and you're going to be, and I'm saying Lauren because I don't want you to keep using your kids' names.
Okay.
Hey, Lauren, and when it's time, this is when you're either tucking her in or giving her a kiss or a high five, whatever it is. Lauren, listen, I want you to know how much I enjoy watching you play, not just as your coach, but as your mom. It is such a treat watching you play. You're really, it's something. And I'm telling you, as you're developing that left-hand shot, once you get that straightened out, you're going to be unstoppable. Now, did you even hear the criticism in that?
Gotcha. I could have used you about 5 years ago.
My point is, kids don't ever want to be told what they're doing wrong from a coach, much less from mom or dad. And like you said, whether you like it or not, you're mom first. You may want to say, hey, I'm in coach mode right now. And they're going to say, I don't care what mode you want to be in. You're my mom. Right. And that's just the way it's going to be. So what did the kid hear? You love watching her play. And when she does this, not if or when you stop being stupid, when you get this done, you're going to be unstoppable. Now, it may or may not work, but I will tell you, the car ride home never works. You disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that at all. I like the praise sandwich. I'm going to have to try it.
I hope. I serve up a praise sandwich all the time. Matter of fact, it works on my wife, too. Oh, look at that. And I gave away one of my Mother's Day secrets. All right, listen. We are here with Maura Fletcher, the varsity girls lacrosse coach at Newtown High. We're going to have to go to a quick break. But before we do, you hear me talk every week about Dr. Sean Rooney in Mayapack, New York. He is the top orthodontist, and especially for kids. I got to tell you, call Sean Rooney at 845-621-1222. I got referred to Dr. Rooney for my daughter, Sophia, and I got to tell you, when I went to visit him, I was blown away. From the second I walked in the door there, I noticed that there was something different about this place. The first thing you see, and I don't know what your experiences are, Maura, first thing you see when you walk in, big screen TVs and video games, which I thought was kind of cool. So we were relaxed right off the bat. And the technology in the office was incredible. The staff was friendly. They were knowledgeable. And when we sat down for our complimentary consultation, that means free, and that rings a bell with Coach Tony, instead of the cramped, cold-feeling exam rooms that you're used to when you go to the dentist or the orthodontist, this was like we were sitting in his living room. The place was just huge. And when it came time to explain what had to be done or what he thought had to be done, this guy pretended I wasn't in the room, which at first kind of bummed me a little bit. But he talked directly to Sophia, and he made sure that she understood everything he was saying. And you could see her tension just disappear, which was amazing. As a sports-minded guy himself, Sean Rooney came across like he was a coach. He understood the importance of the teamwork in his office, the education of this kid, and preparation. And because of that, Sophia is bordering on excited for her next visit to Dr. Sean Rooney. So call him today at 845-621-1222 or visit him on the web at RooneyOrtho.com. You can become their fan on Facebook. Whatever you do, you make sure you tell them that Coach Tony sent you. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony on ESPN Radio. Stick around.
Coach Tony.
Hey, we're back, folks. You're with Hey Coach Tony this fine Saturday morning, and we are joined in studio this week by Maura Fletcher, the varsity girls lacrosse coach at Newtown High. And having just changed Coach Fletcher's life for the better, I'm not going to just call it a day just yet. We got some more stuff to discuss. And before the break, I actually wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the issues around coaching your own kids, especially at the high school level. I'm sure there are some conflicts, and we'll talk about conflicts in a second, but you actually offered up a story during the break that I thought was kind of interesting, which outlines a little bit of the downside of coaching your own kid at any level and regardless of whether you're mom or dad. Do me a favor and just for our listeners, recant that story for me.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier Annie's college essay was the good, the bad, and the ugly about her mom being the coach. So the ugly part about it is, as a freshman, she was taking a biology course, which is an upper level course, and mostly sophomores and juniors in the class. She walked in with a Newtown lacrosse sweatshirt on, and her lab partner said, "Oh, do you play lacrosse?" And she said, "Yes," like really excited. "Yeah, I play lacrosse." And she said, "Oh my gosh, that coach is such a witch."
You didn't say witch during the break, but we're going to, for purposes of the FCC, thank you. You had me sweating there for a second. So she caught some heat. Did you expect that at the time?
I did not. And as a successful coach, you know that there are kids that like you, and you know that there are kids that don't. And I am a tough coach. I am. And if any of my players out there are listening, they'll know. And I don't know if you looked at our record. We've won 75 consecutive games in the SWC. Almost untouchable in years past, although Joel Barlow last night, shout out to you for just a one goal deficit to us. You guys played great. But it's not that easy for the kids because there are people that don't like you.
Hey, speaking from some experience dealing with coaches and being a coach myself, I can tell you that my personal opinion is if all your players, especially at the high school level, if all your players kind of like you, I think you're failing miserably. I think all good coaches are somewhat polarizing, where you've got a style of player that's going to love you and there's a style of player that's going to hate you. And I just think that's it's a necessary evil. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances. But I got to tell you, what a lot of us don't talk about, and that's what I love about this show, is we talk about the stuff nobody wants to talk about. Our kids, when you're the coach, your kids are going to catch some heat for that because especially at the younger ages, or even through high school, there aren't many players that are kind of come up to you and tell you what they hate about your coaching style. What they are going to do is they're going to go to your kid and say, "Boy, your dad's a jerk. Your mom is a real witch." Mm-hmm. And how do you prepare your kids for that?
I really do. Annie is tough, a little bit tougher than my younger daughter, and I had to sit down with her. She's a freshman, and sit down with her and really explain to her, like, "Hey, Mad, people are going to say unkind words about your mom, and is that okay? And how are you going to deal with that?" And we did really sit down and have to talk that through. So it's something that we addressed, and something that I believe strongly as a coach and as a mom is you don't try to be friends with your kids. I'm not friends with my lacrosse players, and I'm not friends with my kids. I just don't think that anyone gains from that, trying to, elbow up with them on the bus ride or at home.
Now, when you say, well, I got to tell you, I halfway agree with you. I never want to be friends with my players because there's an issue of major league respect that it's just too blurry. I will share with you that with my kids, in some ways they're my best friends, but I will tell you, and I hope this is what you meant, I am always parent first and buddy second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I will tell you, there's times when I have just a ball with my kids, and we'll sit there and we'll laugh and we'll do the goofiest stuff, and I become a 12-year-old kid again whenever I talk to them. But they do know that if, for example, if they're eating in the living room and mom just cleaned in there and you're dropping food on the floor, it ain't, "Hey, look how cool, I dropped some crumbs." They're like, "Oh, I better go clean that up or Dad's going to kill me." And I think it's important. I think the real issue there is about maintaining a level of respect,
right?
That you don't want to. And I've met parents, and I'm sure this is why you say it. And it unfortunately happens a lot when there's divorces. I don't know if you noticed that. If it's a dad and a son, it seems like those dads revert to, "I want to be his friend first and be liked," instead of being a parent. And I personally think it just deteriorates the entire relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, listen, it's obvious that moms and women in general are playing a more important role in youth sports. And I think that's great. But let's face it, there are still times when mom can say something and really embarrass a kid. Or worse, embarrass dad.
Isn't that what we were put on this earth to do?
Yeah, well, you know what? From your lips to my wife's ears. But, in fact, listen, just this past week, I was at a game, and I watched a kid make an error. And while the rest of us who were watching the game as parents were basically just thinking, okay, let's just get the next one, in the moment of that silence where everyone's adjusting to the mistake, the kid's mom stood up, and this is a friend of mine, as is her husband. She stood up and, amidst our silence, yelled out the kid's name, and then simply yelled, "What the hell?" Now, the good news is we all started laughing, but I don't think it was intended to be humorous. The kid was mortified, and you could see him try to kind of do a turtle and hide his head inside of his jersey. And here's where I find out who really listens to my show and who doesn't, because if she's listening, I'm going to catch a whole bunch of heat at the next game. But if her husband was not there, and I think it would have been even worse for the husband. At the end of the day, no real harm done other than a little embarrassment, but it does lead me to a question. With the amount of time that you've been coaching, I'm curious because you have insights to the mom mentality that I just don't. How has the role of mom evolved, both good and bad, when it comes to the behavior and the overall role as mom at the games?
I find that it's mostly the dads that are the ones doing the yelling behind me on the sidelines.
Totally agree.
Not so much the moms. I feel like a lot of the moms are not sports-minded.
Still,
not sports-minded where they're not accepting the sports or pushing sports, but they didn't play sports.
Yeah, but when we were kids and we played our sports, I started the show with it, and I halfway expect you to try to reach over and choke me a little bit because I talked about keeping the uniform clean and driving us to the game and giving us the milk and cookies.
I do all that.
And that's still important. But that role, since we were kids, and you look younger than me, but you have a kid in college. Okay, I'm 44, and I'm not going to ask you how old you are. I almost caught some heat for asking you what size your T-shirt was so I can give you one. But the fact is, our moms rarely came to the games, and they were blissfully ignorant of sports. That's definitely an evolution. That's got to be changing a bit. Don't you agree?
I do agree, but I still think that there are a lot of women out there that don't know the rules. Mm-hmm. They look at their kids and they think that they're great, that everything that they do is great. I still think that there are certainly women out there, and one of my friends is one of them, and she screams and yells at the games, and the kids finally said, "Mom, you are so embarrassing." And now she sits in the stands and holds her tongue because she has been told by her kids so many times that her yelling was embarrassing. So she keeps quiet now.
How old are her kids?
About the same age as mine. An 8th grader, a 10th grader, and an 11th grader.
All right, so they're a little bit older. And I will tell you, I think maybe it's something to do with girls and their moms, because I will tell you, most kids will not address their parents and tell. I wish if more kids did that, more parents would behave at the games.
I find it so grating as being on the sidelines with parents. I have a very difficult time at my kids' games, the games I'm not coaching. I have a very difficult time sitting near the parents because I can't stand the yelling at the refs. I can't stand them yelling at their own children on the field and yelling at other kids' children on the field. And I said to someone the other day at my 7th grader's lacrosse game, I said, "Gosh, we are so lucky we have so many coaches on this team."
Now, here's the fun part. Here's one of the real upsides of being a mom. If I said that amongst other dads, someone's throwing a punch.
Yeah, right.
And by the way, you're completely right. I find that, and I just got into a scuff, believe it or not, at a 5th grade girls softball game. Not a scuff meaning a fight. I mean, just an interaction. And I find that my lack of tolerance is not so much with bad calls or we should have won. My lack of tolerance is from the people who act that way. I find myself saying, would you shut up? We're at a 5th and 6th grade girls softball game. Can we just let these kids play?
Yep, just play and have fun, because that's what youth sports should be all about.
They got the rest of their lives to be told how much they stink and how they're failing. Let's not do this now. Let's give kid has a brain fart. I will always, and if someone can call and correct me on this, good luck. I will always default to kid has a brain fart, do over, and I catch heat for that. That's what I call heat for this week. Second and third, there's a walk. Girl from 3rd, who had a brain fart, strolled home. And I got coaches screaming, "Tag her, tag her, tag her." I'm like, guys, are you kidding me? let's just let her go back. And she wasn't trying to steal. She wasn't trying to lead. And that was the subject of a very heated discussion. And while the coaches stayed relatively calm, what happens? And almost halfway coach gets involved in the discussion. And when that happens, that's when you got really stupid stuff starting to get said, and that's when things escalate.
Right.
And I actually had to walk away. I found myself saying, you know what, guys, I'm going to remove myself from this situation. So I'm glad to see that it's not just the dads in that case, but the moms as well. Wow,
interestingly, Charlie is my youngest, and he seems to be on sports teams with people that it's their oldest children. Mm-hmm. So I continually find myself saying to these parents, this is youth sports. They are here to have fun. It matters in high school, and it matters in college. I played at the college level. I get it, mm-hmm. But these parents who are pushing and pushing and pushing at the youth level, it's crazy. Well, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they lose a game. They're going to learn from their loss.
See, that's you know what the funny thing is? And in the heat of that discussion that we were having, I actually told the coach, do you want to just win the game? Because I really don't care. You can have the win. Can we just stop arguing so they can play? And,
right.
and I mean, great point. And this hour is boogieing right by. We're going to have to go to another break, but I do want to remind you folks that Maura Fletcher is live in studio with me this week because she was referred to me as a terrific coach and so far a terrific guest. So Maura, for your contribution to the show and the work that you do with our kids, you get yourself one of these. It is a Hey Coach Tony t-shirt. I'm holding it up for the people who are watching on YouTube. So it's a Hey Coach Tony t-shirt. And this superior quality t-shirt is courtesy of Signature Marketing of Connecticut. Call my good friend Jennifer Holguin at Signature Marketing at 203-232-0868, and she will help you design the best promotional products for your organization, whether it's a great t-shirt like this one, or, hey, guess what? I got this great Hey Coach Tony coffee mug, or any of a number of different promotional products for your sales meetings, your golf outings, your charity events like the car wash that Newtown had to cancel today, or anything else you can think of. Jennifer Holguin and her team at Signature Marketing can do it all for you. Call Jennifer at 203-232-0868 or visit them on the web at signaturemarketing.com. Thanks again to Signature Marketing for sponsoring our guest in studio this week and for this terrific T-shirt. If you want to nominate a coach or a team player, you know what? You can use the Hey Coach Tony hotline. If you want to be on the show and join me and get yourself one of these great T-shirts, you can call me after the show on 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. You're with Hey Coach Tony on ESPN Radio. Stick around.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're with Hey Coach Tony this fine Saturday morning, and we are joined by Maura Fletcher, the varsity girls lacrosse coach at Newtown High School. I'm enjoying this tremendously, but I do want to start getting to some of our calls. So I think we're going to go to Jeremy, who is calling in from Charlotte, North Carolina. Hey, Jeremy, you're on Hey Coach Tony. How you doing this morning?
Yeah, hey, Coach Tony, doing great. Thanks for letting me call in, Coach Fletcher. Great to listen to some of your stories and what you're talking about. And Tony, what a fantastic show, and just a message that you continue to bring out is wonderful. I just had two quick comments and listening to your show this morning, actually, as I headed to a little soccer tournament. And the first one was, you talked about the praise sandwich earlier.
Yep.
And, I found that with younger athletes, that is great. And you talked about if you keep working on your left, you're going to be unstoppable or something like that is what you're talking about. And that just works. I think with middle school athletes or high school athletes, that sometimes doesn't work because parents often hear the statement say, "Oh, Dad, you're supposed to say that. You're supposed to believe I'm unstoppable," and so they won't always believe that. And so another suggestion that I've found has worked with the parents that we work with and kind of the programs that we take them through is looking for those opportunities to actually coach. So instead, maybe to say, or in addition to say, "Hey, listen, I know you're disappointed about that play, but other than that, again, if it's a younger athlete, what was fun for you? What did you enjoy? If it's a middle school athlete, where did you feel you did well? If you could press the redo button, what would you do? What would you have done differently?" And then to end it with letting them know, "Hey, here's the way that I saw and I experienced that you added value in a positive way to the game today, to your team, and that you can keep your head high.
Well,
So
yeah, I think that's a great point that you can bring in some of that, at least, I don't want to say highlighting, but at least allude to a little more directly the actual thing that has to get fixed. I think that's on a kid-by-kid basis, and certainly as they get older.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to be hokey. If you're going to use that praise sandwich, I will tell you, use them a little sparingly, and you got to develop a real style for it, because if you don't do it right, it comes across as hokey garbage, and the kids do see right through that. What was your second point?
Yeah, no, that first point was awesome. I loved it. It was great. So the second point was just a story about moms and their tribute to moms today. And we had a mom at a football game back in the fall, and at halftime her son just was not playing well. And she gets up as the team comes over to the sideline and yells at her son and says, "You don't listen to the coach. You do what I tell you to do. I am more important than your coach."
Oh, wow.
By the way,
And
you
I
said
feel
tribute.
sorry for that kid at home.
There's more to the story, Jeremy?
pardon?
Is there more to this story?
Oh yeah. So she gets down and she walks on the field.
Oh,
And
boy.
she gets in the coach's face and she tells the coach what her son needed to do. And what he needed to play and what needed to happen. The son turns embarrassed. The son walks off and he leaves the game.
Although I got to say, Sandra Bullock, when she did it in The Blind Side, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, but again, that never happened. Let's face it. By the way, Jeremy, thank you so much for the call. He said tribute. And when I heard tribute from Mother's Day, I thought it was going to be a heartwarming, some lady just told her son, "Hey, coach is yelling at you. Don't worry about it. You're going to do great." And the kid went back and scored the winning touchdown. That wasn't a tribute, dude. That was a bash. And you know what? I don't have a ton of listeners in North Carolina, but if that lady's listening, Jeremy, be careful when you start your car. All right, well, listen, the studio lines are still open at 855-HEY-COACH. If you got some interesting mom versus dad stories. But, something else I wanted to ask you, Maura. With kids who played at and are playing and have played at the high school level, I'd have to assume that your kids also played some club or travel sports as well, correct?
They do, yes.
All right. What age did they start playing?
They didn't start travel sports until about the 7th grade.
Really?
Yep.
Now, that's interesting, and let me explain to you why I asked the question. First of all, as a hardcore coach who screws up and talks to the kids in the car on the way home, I figured you would have them starting at embryo soccer like they do in my neck of the woods. But I did get an email from Maria in Mayapack, and she asks, "Hey, Coach Tony, I think the kids are starting in travel sports way too young, and I don't think I'm the only mom who feels this way. What's your position on that?" Well, you started it. Please continue. Your kid started at 7th grade in travel sports.
I agree with Maria. I think the kids need to be kids, and they need to play multiple sports. And I will use soccer as an example because soccer in our town is like the Uber sport where they start at 3 years old and they're on travel by the time that they're 5. And I talk to parents that I'm friends with, and they say, "Oh gosh, Olivia." This is a 5 or a 6-year-old. Olivia really wants to try lacrosse, but she doesn't have any time with her travel schedule.
I got to cut you off for a quick second. You don't do a lot of radio, do you?
No.
You're using way too many names. I'd be careful when I start you.
I made up
Oh,
that
you made
name.
that one up?
I
Oh,
made that one
because you flew right off that. Olivia just flowed. All right, I thought you were going to be in trouble. I'm sorry.
No, I made
so
it up.
Olivia can't play lacrosse because why? Her commitment?
Her commitment to travel soccer. And I just don't get that as a mom or as a coach. So I never, ever encourage my kids to play travel sports until we got to about that 7th grade level where you can really see what skills they've developed, where their strengths are, and where now I want to push them a little bit more and develop their skills so that they can play at the high school level.
Now, in general terms, I'm going to agree with you. And you know who else does? One of my only sports heroes, Cal Ripken Jr. He was asked about his son and does he play, because I think at the time his kid was 10 years old, and he was asked, where does he play travel baseball? And he said he doesn't. There's no reason for a kid to play travel baseball and have that kind of commitment until they're probably 12 years old, which is kind of that magic number of 7th grade. Now, I will share with you that I happen to love it in concept. If you have the right mentality, and by the way, this got me thrown out of my town's travel baseball program. This mentality that I'm going to outline got me thrown out. I was the outcast. Because I believed at the ripe old age of 9 years old, every kid who's going to make that travel, and I'm using baseball as the example, midfield would be the position probably for lacrosse, but every kid who's good enough to play travel, if they throw right-handed, what do we know? They bat third on their in-town team, and they play shortstop, and they pitch. So now you got 13 kids like that. you're going to decide at the ripe old age of 9, no, Maury, you're going to be the one that plays right field and plays 2 innings and gets 1 at bat each game. What crap. I think at a young age, taking the better players, and this is why travel sports were started originally. We said, gee, wouldn't it be cool now that our season's over if we could take the best kids from Newtown and just have them play at a higher level of competition against, let's say, the best kids in Somers and the best kids in Waterbury. That was the original idea, and it's an amazing idea.
Yep, I like that.
The poison came from the idiots who decide it's time to yell at kids when they make mistakes, or because I'm buddies with your husband, your kid's going to play short and bat third every single game, and you're going to turn kids off to that sport. I find that the kids who were the stars at 9 years old or in embryo soccer at 3 years old, whatever it is, they tend to be the ones that burn out. They tend to be the ones that quit.
Yep.
Either because they're not treated the right way or they just have so much exposure to that one sport that they finally say, look, you and I talked during the break. My daughters were both competitive gymnasts, and they really liked it. But it became so prohibitive with all their other sports that it was a no-brainer. They said, you know what, okay, so I got to either do gymnastics all year, and it means I can't play hoops, I can't play softball, I can't play lacrosse, I can't play soccer. Next. Now, by the way, it also saved me several thousands of dollars each year, so I was pleased.
Yeah,
but the point is, I think if it's done the right way, I think it's a great idea. But having said that, I will say that my exposure, and I'm sure you agree, 90% of the coaches don't do it the right way. And at that young level, it's such a risk. You risk such a detrimental experience to the kid that I'm starting to think it's not worth it to have them there until they're 12 years old.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I really like at the end of their season getting that all-star team together to go do a little bit of traveling to other times and get a feel for what that little higher level is. And that's a nice way of rewarding those kids who might practice off-season or take, for lacrosse, take a ball and a stick and go throw against a wall. Those kids should be able to go play at a higher level, but not when they're 5 and 6 and 7 years old.
And I'm glad you say let kids be kids, because one thing that my wife said last night is that's the thing that's missing. That's the part that as a mom drives her nuts, is that the kids aren't being kids and they're being groomed, for lack of a better term. And what the funny part is, we know you played in college, I played in college, we both coach at high levels. 99.9% of all the kids that are playing aren't even going to play in college, much less go on and get a $25 million signing bonus right out of school. It's just not going to happen. So what do you want to grab onto when you're sitting in your rocking chair talking to your grandkids? Do you want to reminisce about how hey, your dad was quite the ball player at 11?
Right.
Really, what the hell else did my dad do? Nothing. They really put all the eggs in that basket. Well, listen, we're talking about moms, and we're going to have to go to another break here. But before we do, in the spirit of Mother's Day, I got to tell you, some of you know, and I talked about this last week, and I'll talk about it for a few more weeks. Very, very dear friend of mine, a lady by the name of Lynette Rannicleve, this past December lost her battle with cancer. Last few years of her amazing life, she was very, very active in cancer awareness. She participated in the Susan G. Komen for a Cure Foundation, and also there was an event in Yorktown, New York, called the Relay for Life event. Well, this year, I bash my hometown of Somers for a lot of things that they do wrong, but this year they're doing something right. Somers is actually hosting its own first and annual Relay for Life. Now, Lynette Rannicleve's husband, Dan, who is a great friend of mine, along with his kids and the young football players that he coaches, have started their own team for this event in honor of his wife, Lynette. The team is called Little Men Representing. The reason it's called that is the acronym is LMR. It's also the initials for my wonderful friend, who I miss dearly, Lynette Marie Rannicleve. There's been tremendous outpouring of support and generosity to the Rannicleve family, and while I'm very uncomfortable ever asking directly for donations or money, I'm putting that to the side because this is important stuff. I insist. Folks, please go to my blog. It's www.heycoachtony.com. The first thing you're going to see is a wonderful pink link at the top of the page. Click on it, and you can go support the Rannicleve family and their team, Little Men Representing, in the Relay for Life for the American Cancer Society. All I'm asking you to do is this. Click on the link and just give $1. That's all I'm asking you to do. It's just $1. You want to give more? Knock yourself out. That would be amazing and very much appreciated. But I urge you, please, this wonderful lady was a source of inspiration to so many of us, and she touched so many lives. Please help us find a cure. Your dollar is going to make a difference, and it's just $1. Please go to my blog at heycoachtony.com. Click on the link on the front page and just give $1 to the American Cancer Society, and please help honor the memory of this dear friend of mine who I miss terribly and someone who I really loved. You're with Hey Coach Tony on ESPN Radio. Stick around. I'll be right back.